I'm leaving Walker Pass, where I got back on trail after taking a 0 in Ridgecrest. I took a shower and got a motel room, took a shower, resupplied, ate some town food, and just took a break for the day and get caught up on some things. I'm about to do a 25-foot climb right out of Walker Pass, going up to Owens, I think it's Owens Peak or Owen Peak. And from there, doing some ups and downs, and eventually getting to Kennedy Meadows after about 50 miles. My goal for today is to get to a water source about 11 miles from here, Joshua Tree Springs. I don't have as long of water carries as I did in the previous section, but it's about 11 miles to Joshua Tree Springs, and so that's one of my ultimate goals. And then probably go a little bit past that to a campsite at Spanish Needle Springs, I think, or Spanish Needle Creek, something like that. My ultimate goal is to get to Kennedy Meadows, which I said was about 50 miles from here. And so let's get it down the road. I know you noticed me sporting some new duds. I got a new hat because that critter, whatever it was, rat, squirrel, raccoon, whatever, ate a hole in my other hat, so I had to get a new hat. And then I got a new shirt. The other shirt showed a lot of salt, sweat stains, and it was dark in color, so I got a lighter colored shirt, so hopefully it'll help in this sun. In the foreground is Inyokern, and in the background is Ridgecrest, where I stayed last night. And then if you keep going, you'll run into Death Valley. Well, I got 10 miles by 10 o'clock again. I started off this morning at 5 o'clock before the sun came up and doing about 2 miles an hour. That's 10 miles by 10 o'clock. Well, it's 10 o'clock, it's time for breakfast. And on the menu for breakfast is cold soak oatmeal and coffee. This is some of that rock slide that occurred when we had that recent earthquake centered around Ridgecrest. Here's the biggest landslide or rock slide that I've seen so far. It's got the whole trail closed off. Here's another one. There's the poodle dog bush again. Poison ivy, poison oak on steroids. All in all, today was a pretty tough day. Started off pretty good. Started off early in the morning. I got to the trailhead about 5 o'clock. Had two 2,500 foot climbs today. So that's what made it pretty tough. But looking forward to a great day tomorrow. And ultimately getting into Kennedy Meadows. Not tomorrow, but we'll get closer to it. We're going to have a great night tonight. and I will see you in the morning. Good morning. I'm leaving my campsite that I stayed at last night. It's kind of a little windy, not too bad, but there was some bushes that kept the wind at bay. I was beat coming into camp last night, just finishing up a 2,500 foot climb. In fact, I was so tired I didn't even feel like eating last night. And for me, that's unusual. I've got a few more feet before I finish up this climb, and then it's downhill to Chimney Creek, where I'll fill up my water bottles. So let's go. This section is somewhat of a transition section. It's still technically a part of the desert section of the PCT, but it's going into the Sierra. There's a lot more tree cover, but at the same time, there's exposed areas that kind of remind you that you're still in the desert. Kennedy Meadows is technically the end of the desert section and the start of the Sierra section. And that's where we're headed. Yummy. I stopped here at mile marker 689.1 and set up camp, and got a lot of mileage in, 16.1 mile, I believe, and which leaves me only 13 miles into Kennedy Meadows, which is my ultimate goal. It wasn't quite as hot as it has been in the last couple of days, but I still had to stop and take a break and take a siesta during the hottest part of the day. So I'm going to get some shut-eye here, and I'll see you in the morning. I left camp a little bit later than I normally do. I left about 7 o'clock, a little bit earlier than 7, but it was real cold last night. When I went to bed, or when I set up camp last night, when I stopped, it was 86 degrees. So I had all my doors open and everything. Well, in the middle of the night, man, it got cold. And then when I woke up this morning, I looked at my temperature on my watch, and it was 40 degrees. And so it dropped from 86 when I set up camp down to 40 degrees. And so, man, it was cold. Again, I'm leaving the desert section and going into the Sierra. And I'm sure that I won't be completely finished with the desert section, but it seems like it's not getting as hot or as exposed as it has in the last couple of weeks when I was hiking. The PCT is varied, has a variety of environments, variety of terrain. You go from the exposed hot desert to the Sierras or Sierra. And then Oregon is pretty much flat from what I understand. Never been there before. And then Washington, again, you go into the Cascades, which is very mountainous. The first part of the desert was not really that harsh when I went through it. It was very unusual. There's a lot of wind, a lot of rain, believe it or not, in the desert. And like I said, it really wasn't that hot. When I went from Campo to Hikertown, and then from Hikertown, starting in the Mojave Desert to Tehachapi, was really very, very cold, windy, and rainy, or is very unlike the environment that hikers had to experience in the past, where it had scorching heat going through the Mojave Desert. So I really wasn't prepared for desert hiking until I got to Tehachapi, all the way to Kennedy Meadows. And man, that section was killer. Well, one time in the upper Mojave, it got up to 114 degrees. And it was all exposed. There was no tree cover or anything. And so I had to real quickly adapt to taking siestas during the afternoon, getting out of the sun, and then a couple of times I had to do some night hiking just to get through an exposed section while the sun was not out. But now it looks like I'm changing environments again, going into the Sierra, where the temperatures are going to be considerably colder, and the elevation is basically going to be about 10,000 feet and above. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, one pass, Forester Pass, highest point on the PCT, is about 14,000 feet in elevation. So I think the key word is to adapt, and adapt to your environment and do what you need to do while you hike. I stopped here for breakfast at 693.5 mile marker at Manter Creek. After miles and miles of long water carries, the South Fork of the Kern River sure is a sight for sore eyes. While you're hiking PCT, you kind of look for different things to motivate you to keep going. I meant to mention it, but at 662 Mile marker 662, that's 1/4 of the entire Pacific Crest Trail. I passed that several days ago. Another milestone that I'm coming up on is mile 700. About 4 more miles, I'll be reaching mile 700 in the Pacific Crest Trail. From Mexico to mile marker 700. Mexican border, Campo, California, 700 miles.